Huang Yueli was all smiles as she replied, "Yes, wasn't it me? Imperial tutor, your age is really catching up. Your response is really retarded, only now did you realize this. But, you're only in a first-degree realm. How is it possible?" Imperial tutor was agape and tongue-tied as his eyes filled with shock, and more shock. At that time, Huang Yueli was heavily locked down by the golden-scaled guards, and yet she was able to escape from the royal treasury. Moreover, Imperial tutor had followed behind her for quite a long distance, but in the end he was not even able to touch a single strand of her hair. Instead, she made a fool out of him. Before that day, Imperial tutor had never been in such a wretched situation for a very long time, so he bore a grudge against the thief ever since, but no matter what, he was not able to witch that person out. Now that he found out about the truth, the Imperial tutor almost wanted to shed tears. How was he, being made a fool by a lass who was in the first-degree realm lass, which was such a far distance from him? Huang Yueli smiling replied, "I have yet to thank you. If it hadn't been for Imperial tutor's leniency, it would not have been that easy for me to get the treasures out from the royal treasury." Imperial tutor was speechless. In what way was he lenient? And, he was not able to catch her at all. As Huang Yueli was saying all these, her hands didn't slow down and continued to empty various treasures from their shelves and kept it all within her realm. The previous time, she was on a tight schedule and was afraid of getting discovered by others, so she only took the most valuable items. But today, since she had no misgivings and had completely fallen out with the Imperial tutor and others, why would she need to conceal the whole story? There were quite a number of treasures which she honestly did not value, but no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still a piece of meat. Even though she don't value it, it wouldn't mean that other people would not value it. If she could auction it off at an auction house, perhaps those were able to exchange for some spirit stones or spirit jades. Imperial tutor looked at Huang Yueli's well-trained and speedy actions, and his brows creased as he let out an extremely painful expression. All these treasures were accumulated bit by bit over the years, and some had been personally procured by himself, leading the golden-scaled guards to dangerous grounds, and now, it was all being swept into the waste pouch of lass that he hated deeply. "By Ruoli, aren't you full of guts? Stop, quickly stop now." Huang Yueli didn't bother about him and continued to sweep all the treasures cleanly on the 5th floor before running downstairs to continue on her collection. Imperial tutor gritted his teeth for half a day, and as time ran past, he realized that something was not right. The area of the treasury was only so big, and the treasures kept within were naturally not few. Some of the treasures were rather large pieces, and yet Huang Yueli had kept one piece after another into her space, as if it was not full at all. How much was her realm ring able to contain? And there was something more shocking. That was although she had been running to and fro among the different floors, and had swept every single shelf cleanly as though she was packing her own home storage room. Heaven knows, there were numerous mechanisms in every single room of the 5th floor, and various traps were also set up on the other floors, but not only had Huang Yueli not breached a single one of them, she also easily got hold of everything. A huge tidal wave arose in Imperial tutor's heart. Even for himself, even if he held the treasury's map in his hands, he would still need to be extremely careful, afraid that once he loses caution, his life would be buried within this place. But this lass. How did she do it? Huang Yueli spent just over 2 hours and had already finished collecting about 70 to 80% of the 4th floor's treasures. You can also listen on. Just at this moment, Moe's figure was like a gust of wind and engulfed himself into the royal treasury. In Moe's hands was a huge gunny sack, and on the opening of the gunny sack was a straw rope tightly sealing it. The gunny sack bobbed up and down in all sorts of directions, and there was a faint noise coming from it. It was obvious that something alive was in it. Moe came before Huang Yueli and bowed to show his respect. "Third miss, the thing that you wanted, your subordinate has already brought it. Do you want to check the item?" Huang Yueli nodded and said, let's take a look at it. Moe opened the sack and shook it. Tumbling, a figure of a person rolled out, and it rolled for several rounds on the ground before it finally came to a halt, and that person was the Crown Prince. Li Majuan's expression seemed a little dazed, as though he wasn't sure where he was at, as he blankly looked to his left and right for several moments. Huang Yueli immediately understood what had happened. She guessed that Moe didn't officially cross hands with Li Majuan and just directly gunny sacked him from behind, and just brought him here after sacking him up. She almost laughed out loud because Moe actually had a gift for playing tricks on people. This should be because he had followed Li Moying around for too long, so one takes on the color of one's company. Crown Prince absently turned his head around, and the first sight that falls into his eyes was the bundled-up imperial tutor and others. His eyes opened wide in astonishment. "Master, why are you here? What happened to all of you?" When imperial tutor saw Crown Prince, his face was filled with sorrow and melancholy. "Majuan, why are you so careless? You really got captured by that damned lass." "Sigh, what should we do now?" "What damned lass?" "Master, why are all of you trapped in that mechanism?" "I shall think of a way to release all of you." "AI, don't come over, be careful of falling into Ruoli, that damned lass's tricks." "Your master was careless, so I fell into her trickery." Ruoli. When Li Majuan heard her name, he turned his head and his sight fell onto Huang Yueli's face as he gave a shriek. "Ruoli, what are you doing here?" Huang Yueli had been watching this show for some time and replied smilingly, "Crown Prince, long time no see. The last time we met, I recall your meridians were severed totally, and I was still worried for you, that you might become a disabled person. To think that you're actually alright and there's no impairments to your movements, this is really a surprise. What kind of miracle medication did you take?" Crown Prince was originally slightly dazed, but when he heard her words, his expression grew uglier by the minute as the veins on his forehead started to pop out. This was called touching one's tender spot. Li Majuan's biggest insult throughout his entire life was to have his meridians severed in front of everyone at the Peach Blossom Banquet, and he almost became a disabled person. It was only until a few days ago when Li Shuer returned and gave him a 5th-grade pill, which allowed him to stand up again. However, even till now, his power had yet to completely recover. Li Majuan clenched and gritted his teeth as he stared at Huang Yueli and replied viciously, "Ruoli. All these are done by you and that bastard Li Moying. You dared to do such a thing like this to me, haven't you thought that I would take revenge? You came at the right timing, I thought you were scared and had hidden yourself. Now that you're here in front of me to look for death, don't blame me for dealing with you." A chilly smile formed on Huang Yueli's lips. What Crown Prince had said really scared me so much. I'm so scared. I wonder how are you intending to deal with me? You can also listen on. The gaze in Li Majuan's eyes seemed extremely gloomy and chilling. "Since you want to know, then I shall tell you. Doesn't Li Moying like you and want to make you his royal consort? If he had knew that when he left South Yu Kingdom and you had been sold to the largest brothel in South Yu Kingdom to receive guests and made him wear 10,000 green hats, I wonder if he would die from an excess of anger." Huang Yueli's smile gradually disappeared as she replied frostily, "Crown Prince, that's a really malicious method. Too bad, he was just dreaming and had no sight at all. He had already been gunny sacked and brought to her, and without thinking of the consequence, thinking of begging her to spare him, instead he was daydreaming of such a dream." Li Majuan saw her stiff face and thought she was frightened and became even more complacent. "But then again, you have such delicate skin and you seem to become prettier by the day. I'm one who knows how to cherish beautiful women, so if you were to serve thousands of men by the pillow, it's really a waste of good stuff. If you wish to follow me instead, I can still let you off." Huang Yueli sneered coldly, you really deserve to be called the Crown Prince. Your dream is really beautiful, but you're simply looking for death. I had thought that since you could finally get down from the bed, you'd cherish your life even more, but I've never thought that you are still looking for death. How can I not grant you that wish?" Li Majuan's eyes turned wide and thought that he had heard wrongly. "What did you say? You say I am looking for death. Shouldn't this lass be weeping bitter tears and begging for mercy?" Without Li Moying as her backing, how would this lass still dare to go against him? Even if Li Moying had left his powerful guard behind, but he was the nation's crown prince. Just a normal guard, would he dare to strike against the crown prince? He had wanted to capture Huang Yueli to warm up his bed, and she thought that she could reject it. As Li Majuan thought of these and wanted to continue scaring her, it would be best if she was scared out of her wits and automatically offer herself to him. In this way, it would be the best way to insult Li Moying. But just as his face surfaced a glint of complacent smile, he felt a wave of profound energy coming towards him. This profound energy was pure and ferocious, and its attack power was abnormally strong. Li Majuan sensed danger and quickly moved to avoid it. However, he was still too late. The profound energy had surrounded him in all directions, and no matter where he ran to, he was unable to hide from it. Bam! Li Majuan felt an intense pain from his chest, and when he lowered his head, he saw a delicate fair fist smashing on his chest. And right in front of him was that young lady whose little face was stiff like a rock. It was Huang Yueli. How could that be? Just as this thought flashed across his mind, at the same moment, he was already flying out and heavily falling onto the ground. Li Majuan opened his mouth and had barely spoke a word when a mouthful of blood rushed up and sprayed out. Following that, a few pieces of teeth also dropped onto the ground. His expression changed precipitously, and when he wanted to climb up, he found himself unable to stand. His forelimbs emitted tremors of intense pain as though it had been broken. Just as he was struggling non-stop, Huang Yueli had step by step, slowly walked to his side. Li Majuan clenched his teeth and looking upwards, he raised his chin to look at the young lady. Using such a position to look at someone was a first time for Li Majuan. He just realized that he was prostrating on the ground, and the feeling that he felt from the other party's sight was actually so lowly and insignificant, as though he was even less worthy than a speck of dust. And the Huang Yueli now indeed looked like she was high and almighty. You can also listen on. Bye. Bye Ruoli. It's you. Crown Prince spat out another mouthful of blood, but he still blurted out these words vaguely. He had seen Huang Yueli struck earlier and had felt for himself that huge resistance which he was able to go against, but it was until the minute he had fell heavily injured on the ground, did he finally realize that he was unable to react at all. It was simply unbelievable. Absolutely an impossible thing to have happened. If it wasn't for the bouts of pain reverberating from his body which made him believe that he was still conscious, Crown Prince would have definitely thought that he was still in dreamland, having a nightmare. He was a defensive Profound Realm 7-stage practitioner. As for Huang Yueli, she was only in Chi Profound Realm 9 stage. With such a huge difference of realm between the two of them, it was practically impossible to bypass ranks and challenge him. No matter how abnormal Huang Yueli's innate gift was, even if she had done a breakthrough recently, she should also be in defensive Profound Realm 1st stage. How was it possible that she had the power to battle against him? But fact had proven itself, she had not battled him, but had crushed him. He could not even withstand one stance from Huang Yueli, and he had already been injured to this stage. How was that possible? Crown Prince was still puzzled after much thought. Huang Yueli had started to speak in a frosty tone. Want me to follow you? The man I want must be the strongest, undefeatable and peerless expert. As for you, have you even taken a look at your own reflection to see if you're worthy? Upon hearing that, Li Majuan couldn't help but spat out another mouthful of blood. He had never been despised by any woman in his entire lifetime, but unfortunately, the person who had been beaten to the ground by Huang Yueli was him. It was entirely justified when Huang Yueli said he wasn't worthy. Huang Yueli looked at how angry Li Majuan had gotten, to the point of almost fainting, and a chilling smile appeared slightly. Her wish had never changed since 30 years ago, and that person in her heart had long become Soaring Heaven's Continent's #1 expert. Just a small character like Crown Prince, and he expected her to be his concubine. Moe was listening by the side, and his mouth had long agape and tongue-tied. Third Miss had really dared to claim. Could she be telling the truth? Only marry the strongest, undefeatable and peerless expert? If his master were to hear these, he wondered what he would think. Although his master had an incredible innate gift, but he was still after all pretty young. For now, the distance between him and the #1 expert spot was still rather far apart. Brother Moe. Brother Moe, what are you thinking about? Huang Yueli's calling woke Moe from his trance. He hurriedly recovered his sense as he spoke respectfully. My apologies, Third Mississippi. Your subordinate had been absent-minded. Is there anything you need me to do? Huang Yueli threw a glance at Li Majuan and smilingly said, Crown Prince had been bedridden for too long, so when he stood up, his brain couldn't cope. As an heir apparent to the throne, how can he be so muddle-headed? Why not we give him a helping hand and let him continue to lie in bed for a while more? Yes. Moe was stunned for a moment before he managed to react. Huang Yueli had intended to sever Li Majuan's meridians again. Unfortunately, although her battle skills were outstanding and could defeat Li Majuan easily, but she was after all just in second-degree realm. She was unable to be like Li Moying to achieve the effect of severing the meridians of Li Majuan. Only experts who were several realms higher could do that. So this dirty and strenuous work had not fallen onto Moe again. Moe resignedly walked over and squatted down beside Li Majuan. As he pressed against Li Majuan's arm, he gradually imbued his profound energy. Not sure if it was due to his weak ability or was it done intentionally, when the process of severing the meridians was done by Moe, it was done at a snail-pace speed. You can also listen on. Following each movement made by Moe, Li Majuan let out several blood-curdling screeches. When Li Moying had severed his meridians previously, it was done instantaneously. But when Moe did it this round, it was done by crushing each meridian one by one, and the entire process was extremely long. Li Majuan could distinctly felt the pain from every single inch of his meridian being crushed. This type of pain seemed to come deeply from the soul, causing him totally unable to suppress his volume. By Ruoli. You're looking for death, you. You dare to do this to me. I will not let you off. Huang Yueli heard his clamoring, but there wasn't a trace of fear on her face. Instead, it was filled with a relaxed smile. Look at what you're saying. Since Crown Prince had no intention to let me off, then even if I were to let you off now, it would be useless. So I might as well take the opportunity to torture you now, otherwise if you were to make reprisals against me in future, won't I lose out? You, Crown Prince was rendered speechless. Because what Huang Yueli said was absolutely right. Since she knew he would take revenge, of course she would have to eliminate him completely. If he was in her shoes, he would do the same too. If he wanted Huang Yueli to let him off, by right, he should entreat piteously. But for such an arrogant person like Crown Prince to beg Huang Yueli, he was not able to open his mouth at all. It was because of his hesitation for just that quarter of an hour, the splitting pain from his severed meridians quickly made him abandon his last pride and started pleading for mercy. Bye. Third Miss Bai, please have mercy. I beg you, please let me go, let me have a straightforward, Crown Prince tossed and turned as he rolled around the ground, repeatedly pleading for mercy. Hearing his bouts of sorrowful pain, even the imperial tutor and others had turned green from fright, drained of all colors. All of them casted their sights on Nimue and Huang Yueli, their gazes filled with terror and revulsion, but they did not dare to let out any sounds just because they were afraid of diverting their attention to their side, henceforth causing them to fall into the same tragedy. It was to the extent that Crown Prince had almost fainted from the pain before Huang Yueli asked Nimue to stop. Li Majuan's face was pale white as cold sweat had drenched his entire body. Due to the tossing and turning and struggling on the ground, his clothes were sodden with dirt as he looked utterly grimy. At this present moment, he did not look one bit like his usual aloof demeanor. Instead, he looked as dirty as a roadside beggar. Huang Yueli slowly walked in front of him and stopped. Li Majuan was unable to speak any words out, so he could only look at her bitterly. Huang Yueli lowered her tone as she spoke. "Crown Prince, do you think I'm too vicious? No matter how you begged, I didn't let you off. But that year, when a 6-year-old child was whipped by you, bitterly pleading for mercy, have you ever thought of letting him off? When he was made to kneel by you on that icy cold ground as a punishment, have you ever thought of letting him off? He was only a child, he had a weak disposition, without even a bit of cultivation talent." Her voice was very light and soft, as though it was reverberating from somewhere far away. But when he heard these words, Crown Prince's heart became abnormally shocked and surprised. The child she had spoken of, naturally was Li Moying. Crown Prince had never thought that Huang Yueli would torture him in this way just because she was taking revenge for Li Moying. Huang Yueli continued, "Crown Prince, did you know why Li Moying's potential had long surpassed you but yet he had been silently tolerating, and not kill you? Did you really think that with the so-called status of a small country's crown prince, it was enough to scare him off? Or did you think he was kind enough to treat you like his own brother? You can also listen on." How would I know? What would he want to do? Crown Prince's was tongue-tied and didn't know how to reply to that. At the Peach Blossom Banquet, Li Moying's attitude towards him had been normal. Crown Prince had thought that even though he had tried to murder Li Moying when he was young, but since Li Moying was just a piece of trash and his life or death was determined by him, his royal brother's mood, so naturally he would not exact revenge. It was until Crown Prince had almost injured Huang Yueli that Li Moying finally flew into a rage and shattered his meridians in just one blow. Crown Prince had also retrospect on this matter. Since Li Moying was able to cultivate long ago, and since his cultivation was so high, why did he restrain his emotions for so many years and not flared up? Was it because of that near-death incident when he was only 6 years old, that fever which had burnt up so badly that his previous memories had been forgotten? However, upon hearing Huang Yueli's words, Crown Prince suddenly realized that not only did Li Moying didn't lose his memories and had not forgotten everything in the past, he had even related his part to his fiancée. Since that was the case, why would he let him get off scot-free for so many years? Huang Yueli looked at his terrified expression, and as a flush of elatedness rushed up, a sliver of grief welled up too. Just thinking back about how Li Moying had suffered under this man in front of her, she was unable to control the heartache and fury building up within her. She coldly sneered, that was because. Before Empress Ming passed on, she had made him swear to heavens that he would definitely not do anything to fight against his siblings and break your imperial father's heart. Otherwise, did you think you can live until today? Upon hearing these, besides being shocked, Crown Prince suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that Empress Ming had deeply loved their imperial father so much that she even made her own son took such an oath. Since that was the case, doesn't it mean that no matter under what condition, Li Moying would not be able to kill him? This was equivalent to an amnesty medal. No matter how powerful Li Moying was or how high his cultivation went, under the restriction of such an oath, he had nothing to fear. After all, to stand by one's oath was extremely important to practitioners. If news were to leak out, one would be despised by everyone under the heavens. There was finally some life on Crown Prince's pale face. By Ruoli, since that's the case, aren't you going to release me? Don't tell me you're going to go against the oath and kill me instead. Crown Prince had thought that since he had fallen into Huang Yueli's hands this round, he would definitely end up dead. He had never expected that she could not do anything to him. With this thought in mind, he relaxed slightly. However, Huang Yueli sneered chillingly, "Crown Prince, don't you think you've set your mind at ease too soon? The person who swore that he would not take your life is Li Moying, not me. Since he can't put his hands to it, I'm very happy to share his worries for him." Crown Prince instantly sprouted a head full of sweat. "What do you want? You're his fiancé. If you were to kill me and word leaks out, the debt will ultimately fall back onto Li Moying and he will still despised by everyone. So what?" Huang Yueli replied disapprovingly. "I will kill whoever I want to, even if it's Li Moying. He will not be able to control me." The fear that Crown Prince had felt had risen to the peak. Furthermore, the torment within his heart was much more serious than his physical injuries. He had a feeling that Huang Yueli was enjoying his panic-stricken expression, so she had been making a fool out of him. Every single time, she would give him a little hope thinking that he would be able to escape unscathed, but immediately after that, she would crush that hope to pieces. You can also listen on. The ups and downs had already caused him to enter a perturbed state of mind as he was subjected to torment. Crown Prince felt that he was about to go mad. Luckily, just at this moment, Huang Yueli seemed to have enough fun, or perhaps it was out of her goodwill that she decided to let him off. She stood upright and said, "Initially I wanted to cut you up into 1,000 pieces to exact revenge for Li Moying. Just too bad, you're still of use to me, so I'll let you retain your life for a while more. But although I won't kill all of you personally, whether you can leave the royal treasury alive would be another case, so here's wishing you good luck." Saying that, she turned her head to call upon Moe. "Brother Moe, on the way in, did you fancy any treasures? Whichever you've taken a fancy on, just go ahead and keep it. Don't stand on ceremony with them." Moe laughingly replied, "Third miss, to tell the truth, when I was on my way in earlier, I had already kept some pieces of magical beast cores and spirit jades. The rest were all a load of worthless stuff and it was troublesome to move it all, so your subordinate couldn't be bothered." Huang Yueli nodded. "Since that's the case, we should get going as it's not early anymore." "Yes." Huang Yueli led him out of the treasury's main entrance and strutted right out. Leaving behind them was an immobile crown prince whose meridians had been severed for the second time and a huge bundle of 3rd and 4th degree realm experts who were clamped up like a bunch of rats. Imperial Tutor heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Huang Yueli and Moe's departure. He tried to shift his profound energy to his surroundings in an attempt to shake off the ropes. Quickly, everyone worked together and blast this clamp apart. Or at least try to loosen these ropes. The clamp mechanism is not too far off, we must think of a way to reach that area. Right, everyone listened to Imperial Tutor. The few of them worked hard together and finally broke the rope. Just as they were preparing to break apart the clamp, they felt a slight tremor within the treasury. Do any of you felt that the room is moving? Yes, don't tell me you have the same feeling. I thought it was my misperception. It's real. All of them looked at their surroundings in shock, but the four walls didn't seem to have any changes. But there seemed to be something slightly, barely unnoticeable change. What kind of situation was this? Only Imperial Tutor expressed in matchless appalling expression. No good, that wretched lass had activated the royal treasury's self-destruction mechanism. Self-destruction mechanism. What is that? Everyone knew it sounded anything but reassuring, and as they were raising questions, they had already started to break out in cold sweat. Imperial Tutor's expression became even more imposing. This self-destruction mechanism was set up in case of war, where if we were to encounter the situation where we were not able to move the treasures in time and did not wish to let the other party gain the treasures, so under no alternative would we activate this switch. Once it has been activated, the surrounding four walls will gradually draw close to the core until the walls have completed closed up and all the items are crushed to smithereens. Haven't you noticed that the surrounding space have been gradually getting smaller? The others carefully observed for a moment and everyone's faces took a huge change. It's really so. Why did it come to this? What should we do? That's it, don't tell me I'm really going to die here. Imperial Tutor, Sir Imperial Tutor. Quickly think of an idea, how can we escape from here? Everyone were shooting their mouths off pleading with the Imperial Tutor for help. However, in the Imperial Tutor's heart, he was even more anxious and uncertain than anyone else. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor was very clear that the self-destruction mechanism in the royal treasury was an extremely top-secret information, and it wasn't until the demise of the entire country before it would be activated. So the only person who knew how to activate the self-destruction mechanism was the Emperor. Even the Crown Prince was not qualified to get associated with this top-secret information, so naturally Imperial Tutor did not know any better. But now, this mechanism had suddenly been activated. How did Huang Yueli get to know of this top secret? How could she possibly activate the self-destruction mechanism? Surely it could not have been told to her by the Emperor personally, right? No, this was impossible. Or could it be that the Emperor had already decided to leave the position of Crown Prince to Prince Yuang, so he conveyed the top-secret information to him and Prince Yuang let the information out to Huang Yueli? The more Imperial Tutor thought, the more flustered he became. But to him, the most important thing now was to quickly escape from the clamp and from this hellish place, otherwise not only him, even the Crown Prince, would be going to die here today. He spoke with a gloomy expression, everyone, normally we are locked in constant strife and everyone would have your own life-preserving amulet, but today, we might just die here. So everyone, stop hiding your life-preserving amulet, bring it out. All of us, only have this once chance. Even though Huang Yueli didn't witness it with her own eyes, she could roughly guess what happened in the treasury. She took quick light steps and brought Moe back to the valiant martial manner. Today she had tormented some lowly dregs, but what made her happiest was that she had personally executed corrective punishment on Crown Prince. She had long been displeased with the Crown Prince. A hypocrite who considered himself to be a Casanova. If he were to bully her, she would not bother, but he had even taken action against such a young child. Thinking about the handsome looks on Li Moying, how cute could he have been when he was young? If she had such an adorable little baby, she would smile even in her dreams. Huang Yueli thought about the original version of Li Moying and her lips curled up slightly. Even she had not noticed how gentle her smile was. This kind of smile had been caught in Moe's eyes and he was surprised by it and took several glances at her, thinking whether he should open his mouth or not. Huang Yueli caught his gazes and turned around to ask, "Brother Moe, what did you want to say?" Moe replied, "Crown Prince and the rest, will they really be buried alive in there?" Huang Yueli shrugged her shoulders as she answered, "Surely it won't be that tragic. Although that self-destruction mechanism had been activated, but I'd made some slight adjustments to it, so the speed of closing was slower by 3 times of the normal." In Imperial Tutor's hands was the distribution map of the Royal Treasury's mechanism, so if they were to grab hold of time, they should still be able to escape at the very last moment. Moe responded, "I see, I had thought that. Third Miss, you're really intending to get rid of them all at one go." "I wanted to." Huang Yueli apportioned her arms, but unfortunately if the Crown Prince, Imperial Tutor and the others had all died, this matter would blow up. By then, I would have to leave the South U Kingdom. Now it's just nice, I still need the Crown Prince to be my scapegoat. As she said that, her mouth let out an astute smile. Moe heard and hurried replied, "Third miss, actually, you need not stay on in South U Kingdom. With your outstanding talent, if you were to wander and experience the world, it would be good as well. Your subordinate can bring you to the sect to find my master. With your innate gift and status as master's fiancé, I'm sure you can successfully enter the sect and learn even higher level skills. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment as she had never expected Moe to say such a thing, but immediately following that, she shook her head. "Better not. I still have some matters to settle in South U Kingdom. Besides that, isn't Li Moying's sect extra secretive? I know of some reputable sect's rules. Although of some the disciples have parents and children, but they're not allowed anywhere near the sect. For someone like me to appear there suddenly, it's just not right. That's different. Master is not any ordinary disciple, and in the sect, no one dares to go against Master. What's more, the feelings Master has for you is different, so naturally he will protect you." Moe spoke favorably of his master. However, Huang Yueli continued to shake her head. "Forget it, this matter is too early to be discussed upon now. I still have plenty of things which I want to do." Moe wanted to continue persuading her, but upon seeing Huang Yueli's "end of discussion" expression, he swallowed the words stuck in his throat back into his stomach. The entire journey back was silent. Moe didn't dare to make his future mistress angry, while Huang Yueli had fallen into deep thoughts. Not that she had never considered leaving South U Kingdom. In actual fact, she was pretty sure that she would be leaving this place rather soon, and it was impossible to waste too much time in South U Kingdom. Her focus was to use the fastest speed possible to continue cultivating. Only when she could step on the peak then would she be able to find out the truth about her past life. If she were to stay in this small place for too long, not only was she unable to get the resources which would in turn affect her cultivation, the surrounding geniuses were not enough, so she would not gain enough competition, and it would likely sap away a practitioners while causing their cultivation to come to a standstill. To an experienced practitioner like Huang Yueli, she was most unlikely to make this type of mistake. So leaving was a must. But before leaving the South U Kingdom, Huang Yueli wanted to look for traces of the treasury which Bai Lu Feng had left behind. Previously she had found the jade pendant in the blood-feather silk cage, but had not known the exact use for it. Huang Yueli always believed that she was able to find another clue within the South U Kingdom. Now that her body was of the flame spirit physique and with such shocking cultivation condition, this was definitely not something coincidental, so her background shouldn't be that simple. In order to hasten her cultivation, she must first find out the secret behind her background, and naturally, the simplest way was to find out from the clue that Bai Lu Feng had left behind. Of course, even if it wasn't to look for her parents, Huang Yueli had never considered to look for Li Moying at his sect. Although Li Moying treated her very well and she didn't dislike him. But between them, there was still other forces of obstruction. And that was Mu Qingying. Just recalling the love entanglement affairs in her previous life many years ago, the heartbreak and regret that she continuously haunt her at night, Huang Yueli was very sure that her feelings towards Mu Qingying had been deeply etched within her soul, unable to be diminished. As for Li Moying, perhaps he might be the type of person that she liked, but they were destined to meet but not fated to be together. What she could do for Li Moying was only to beat up the crown prince violently, as a way to vent his anger for him. So now that the both of them were separated because of Li Moying's sect matters was actually a good thing. The distance between them were very far apart, and without noticing, this unfathomable feeling that tugs her heartstrings would gradually disappear. By then, it would naturally come to an end and would not hurt Li Moying. After some time, she would secretly leave South U Kingdom and find an opportunity to get Moe to return. In this way, it would really sever the last communication pathway between the both of them. You can also listen on. When she thought of this, Huang Yueli's mood started to weigh down. To have come to such a decision, it would be obvious how angry and disappointmently Moying would be. However, her heart already belonged to someone else and there was no way she would two-time the both of them, so the consequence was to break his heart. She must toughen up her mentality as it was better to cut short the suffering. Both of them silently returned to the valiant martial manor. After a difficult day, the sky had now turned dark. Everyone in the manor were waiting anxiously, terrified that something had happened to both of them, so upon their safe arrival, everyone finally let down their tensed emotions. Huang Yueli first went to look upon the bedridden Kai Wei. Seeing her entire body full of multiple injuries, she sighed with emotions. Although Kai Wei had an innate gift for cultivation and she had already taught her the cultivation method to do so, but Kai Wei didn't pay much attention on her cultivation because she was still positioning herself as a role of a servant girl. Perhaps it was because she had been a servant for such a long time so she was not able to assume her new role so quickly. When Kai Wei saw Huang Yueli appear in front of her, she was extremely touched as she tried to get up to give a curtsy. Third Miss, why have you come here? It's very late now, please go back and rest. Huang Yueli pressed down on her shoulder and helped her get back on the bed. From her realm ring, she took out several bottles of medicinal pills and left it by her bedside. Your injuries are rather serious, but luckily it's only an external injury and had not hurt your meridians. Here are some bottles of third-grade pills. Take some later and by tomorrow morning, you should feel much better. Kai Wei turned pale with fright. What? Third-grade pills? How much money do these cost? Third Miss, your servant just needs to rest a few days and I'll be much better. There's no need to waste these pills, and what's most, these are high-grade life-saving pills. In what way are these high-grade? Huang Yueli replied disapprovingly. After she had advanced to the defensive profound realm, the Sky Phoenix ring also advanced alongside and the pills and materials in it had advanced from second grade to third grade. So whatever third grade pills she had, she shared a little with Kai Wei, which took no effort at all. She thought for a moment and took out a bottle of spirit-raising pill. This pill was something that she had brought out in the previous 1,000 treasure auction, and it had once attracted many practitioners to snatch up this. Even Bai Ruoqi wanted it so badly that she was cheated of a small fortune out of it, and had almost ended up bankrupt. But now, her realm ring was full of these spirit-raising pill and she had as much as she needed. Huang Yueli put down the pills and said, "You don't need to help me save on these pills. Your young mistress is no longer that small, pitiful girl of the past. These pills are nothing much. And you, stop treating yourself as a lowly serving girl. If you don't wish to continue being bullied, then you need to strengthen up. I'll leave these spirit-raising pills here for you. If you are not able to advance to at least the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage within 3 months, then don't bother to come look for me again." Kai Wei's eyes turned wide unbelievably. What? Chi Profound Realm, 5th stage. How can that be possible? Your servant had just started cultivating and there are many things that I still don't know. Second Miss, who was a genius, also spent around 2 years to reach the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage. Huang Yueli calmly replied, "Your innate gift is not much different from Bai Kuo Qi. And the cultivation method that I had taught you is of much higher grade than hers. Besides that, with the effects of these spirit-raising pills, which you should have heard of before, what reason do you have to feel that you're worse than her? You can also listen on." Kai Wei did not dare to defy her order and could only lower her head to admit the facts silently. But in her heart, she was still feeling restless, unable to believe completely that she was able to successfully cultivate to the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage. Huang Yueli didn't speak anymore. She had already come to this stage and however more she added on would be meaningless. Kai Wei had never been confident enough, and this was entirely her own problem. What Huang Yueli could do was to give her a little more pressure with the hope that during the process of her advancement, she would be able to gain her self-confidence. Otherwise, just based on her cowardly outlook, it would be hard for her to become a real practitioner. Kai Wei's matter had also given Huang Yueli a reminder. In this batch of servants that she recruited, although they were all loyal and had a certain level of cultivation gift, but they were still picked out from the bottom rung of the ladder, and like Kai Wei, there were a number of them who lacked self-confidence. Looked like it's time to give all of them some pressure. Moreover, just basing on this method of recruitment, it would be extremely tough, so she would need to reconsider other methods to recruit subordinates with powerful potential. Huang Yueli left from Kai Wei's room, returned directly to her own bedroom and continued to go into closed-door cultivation. She had just completed her breakthrough this morning, and it was an entire realm of continuous breakthrough. Although her power had greatly increased, it came along with several hidden damages as well. Her breakthrough speed was too fast, and the amount of time she spent at every single stage was extremely short, practically just a couple of breaths' time. With such a situation, her had absorbed a little too much profound energy into her body, and the cultivation was not stable enough, so it would easily cause profound energy to become chaotic. Moreover, after her breakthrough, she had continuously struck out a couple of moves, which led to the profound energy in her body to encounter great fluctuations. So after she had settled all the troubling matters, the first thing she wanted to do was to continue her closed-door cultivation to stabilize her cultivation. And this round, there was no one who would come and disturb her peace. In the quiet night, Moe stood under a big tree not too far away, and in his arms lay a white-breasted falcon. When the white-breasted falcon saw him, it seemed very excited as it agitatedly rubbed against Moe for half a day until his clothes had wrinkled up. Moe patiently pacified it for a while and tied a small bamboo tube on one of the white-breasted falcon's leg. This white-breasted falcon was their sect's commonly used mode of communication, and within the bamboo tube laid a letter to be delivered. Li Moying had left a few birds behind when he had stayed in the South Yu Kingdom. Before he parted ways with Huang Yueli, he had repeatedly reminded Moe to use the white-breasted falcon to send letters and maintained contact with him. Such an intelligent person like Moe understood his meaning the minute he heard it. His master wanted him to note down all that had revolved around Huang Yueli as soon as possible and send the reports to him. Moe sometimes could not believe that his master was obviously a cool and calm character, and he especially loved to use the cold and indifferent attitude towards women. But towards Third Miss, he seemed to have changed into a different person completely, turning into a piece of chewing gum. His master had retained his best bodyguard to stay beside Third Miss. The reason was not only to ensure her safely, but more importantly, was to gain better control over the Third Miss's whereabouts and current situation. Moe was able to grasp Li Moying's intention, and he felt that today was the day where he must pen down a letter to Li Moying. Third Miss had just returned to the South Yu Kingdom and had already met with so many scums who were not afraid of death, and since they dared to come forward to create trouble for her, he must naturally inform his master about this. Most importantly, Huang Yueli had personally taught the Crown Prince a lesson on behalf of Li Moying. If his master were to find out about this matter, he would definitely be ecstatic. You can also listen on. After all, during this entire duration, Moe served as a bystander and saw for himself how Li Moying and Huang Yueli got along. Between the both of them, Li Moying had always been the spontaneous party and had already let go of his status of the #1 expert of the younger generation as he used various means and ways to pursue Huang Yueli. However, Huang Yueli kept rejecting his advances. Although the actions between them sometimes looked ambiguous and Huang Yueli seemed to have some feelings towards Li Moying. However, from the occasional expressions of defeat in his master's eyes, it should be because Third Miss had yet to completely accept him. And this actually made Moe and the rest very surprised. Even though Huang Yueli had guts, great innate gift and earned the respect of the subordinates, but no matter what, their master should be more than enough to be worthy of her. If she was dissatisfied with such an unsurpassed innate skilled and peerlessly handsome man, then who did she want to marry? However, the truth was displayed right before their eyes, and that was Huang Yueli's lukewarm reaction towards Li Moying. As a subordinate, they were concerned for their master under such a situation. But now that Huang Yueli had displayed the act of revenge on behalf of Li Moying, Moe felt that he was able to see the light in front of the tunnel. For someone who was able to recall every single word Li Moying had mentioned, to feel anguish for Li Moying's suffering during his childhood and to exact revenge on behalf of him, without a concern for the risks that she had to face. This act only proved that Third Miss also liked his master, right? Moe felt that he found a crux to the question and naturally could not wait to convey the message to Lo Moying immediately. He hoped that when his master saw this piece of news, it would raise his spirits, and once he had successfully settled the sex matters, he would be able to arrive earlier to pick up Third Miss. Moe had never in his wildest dream imagined that in Huang Yueli was actually thinking of how to break off the relationship between Li Moying and her. Sky Cloud City Northeastern Region. A majestic mountain stretched into the clouds, and hidden in there was the most reputable sect in the South Sky region. As Li Moying sat along the veranda, a white-breasted falcon swooped in from afar and circled several rounds in the sky before landing in front of him. He was holding on to his sword in an apathetic expression, but when he saw the bamboo tube on the white-breasted falcon's foot, the expression on his face instantly relaxed, and that set of deep black eyes was filled with anticipation. His jade-like fingers gently exerted some force, separated the bamboo tube and removed a scroll of letter. At the first glance, Li Moying's eyes dimmed with slight disappointment. This letter was from Moe, and not his little fox's handwriting. Although he had already expected her not to have any conscience, and he gauged that she would probably have forgotten about him, but not having received any letters from her still made him feel unhappy. Li Moying quickly read further. It was almost to the ending, towards the last part, as he got more and more surprised. Finally his aloof lips uncontrollably curved upwards. He hadn't expected his little fox to do such thing, to vent out his anger for him. Although he didn't witness it personally, but just thinking about it, Li Moying could roughly make out the scenario and how pathetic the crown prince had been at that time, and how melancholy he felt at that time. His little fox was really black-bellied to the core. When she wanted to fix someone, she absolutely made the other party live in utter misery, unable to choose between life or death. And this round, she had done it entirely for him. You can also listen on. Just thinking about this made Li Moying's chest filled with indescribable joy. He had always thought this little thing did not put him in her heart, and it had always been his own wishful thinking, going all out in hot pursuit. Even though he looked his usual demeanor on the surface, with his resolute approach and overbearing manner, as though he had never encountered any setbacks, not showing any signs of backing off. In reality, only he himself knew that every single time he was rejected by Huang Yueli, his heart would feel very hurt. No one would like the feeling of being rejected by the person whom they fancied. But after he found out that Huang Yueli had helped him to vent his anger, Li Moying felt that all the setbacks he had encountered was all worth it. Now, didn't his little fox put him in her heart? Otherwise, why would she took the initiative to care about how he felt? Perhaps to the person she liked, there was just this tiny little bit of feeling. Although this tiny bit was not as much as how much he felt for her, but was that really a problem at all? Practitioners with such innate gifts like them had long lives, and in future, they would have a lot of time together to slowly nurture their feelings. There would be a day where that tiny bit of like would grow to become many, many likes, and to the extent of becoming love. As long as he could get this little fox, what he had was plenty of patience and time. Li Moying kept the letter away and took out another piece of paper, penning down a few words of reply. His letter was very short, only indicating that everything was going on smoothly in the sect, and not too long later, he would be able to return to South U Kingdom. With that he changed the topic and hinted to Moe that for future replies, it must be supplemented with Huang Yueli's letter in her handwriting. With that, he stuffed the letter back into the bamboo tube and hung it back onto the white-breasted falcon's leg. "Go," he said as he released the falcon into the sky with a wave of his hand. Looking at the white-breasted falcon spread its wings and skitter into the sky, Li Moying's smile hanging on his lips had not vanished. That little thing's mouth was usually very rigid and had never given him any nice words, but in the end, when he wasn't looking, she had defended him. Looks like her usual rejections were just because she was shy. Senior big brother. So you were here. When Li Moying was daydreaming, a lady's voice echoed from his back suddenly. That voice was gentle and sweet, as though the gentlest water which was flowed outwards. Just from the melodious sound was enough to make out that the owner of the voice was a peerless beauty. However, upon hearing the voice, Li Moying's smile instantly grew smaller and the expression on his face gradually turned back to his usual frosty look. From afar, a young lady dressed in a light purplish flowy dress slowly walked towards him. She looked at most like she was 17 or 18 of age. Her skin was as fair as snow with willow eyebrows, big eyes and delicate features without any flaws, almost like she just walked out from a painting. Besides that, she carried a noble air of elegance and the sleeves on her robe fluttered from her slow movement as though an angel from heaven had descended onto earth. Anyone who had seen her would involuntarily name her with the title Beauty. However, that was not the case for Li Moying. He could not even be bothered to cast her a glance. His cold thin lips parted and spat out two words coldly, "What's up?" A glint of disappointment flashed past the beauty's eyes, but she still tenderly replied, "Senior brother, I heard that you have been at the Heaven Crate Valley holding on to your sword for the past 10 hours. Even though time is tight, you should still take care of your body and foregoing food and sleep just to practice your skills. You can also listen on." Beauty's melodious words was gently flowing as that pair of pretty eyes stayed glued on Li Moying. However, on that peerlessly handsome face was still the usual chilly expression. A sliver of disappointment winced upon the beauty's heart as she looked at the powerfully gifted man who had surpassed all others of his kind. Including that devilish handsome face, the number of ladies who liked him was simply too many. Unfortunately, he acted in the same demeanor towards everyone else, as though he only had cultivation filled up all his thoughts, without any space for any romantic feelings. Even if it was towards his master's daughter, South Sky region's widely known #1 talented lady, Murong Fei, he was also stingy on giving a sliver of warmth. Disappointment was a definite answer, but Murong Fei's unbalanced feeling after knowing that Li Moying had treated all the women in the same way. Since no other women was able to register in Li Moying's eyes, then this outstanding man would become hers sooner or later. The reason was because only a lady of her status and innate gift would be compatible with Li Moying. What's more, the both of them had grew up together since young, so they were considered as childhood sweethearts. For many years, Murong Fei had always been certain of this. However, just a few days ago when her younger sister Murong Inai had made her way back from the Dark Moon Forest, she also brought back a piece of shocking news. After hearing this news, she could no longer sit still and pondered incessantly. Hence she decided to take the risk of being chased away by Li Moying and dropped by to test out his reaction. Seeing the silent Li Moying, Murong Fei summoned up all her courage and leaned slightly closer to him while stretching out that pallet of food in her hands. "Senior brother, I'm worried that your cultivation these few days have been too tiring, so I've specially made you some medicinal cuisine. Please try a little before continuing on your cultivation." Saying that, Murong Fei placed the plate on top of the big stone next to Li Moying as her slender fair hand lifted the cover and used the spoon to stir the soup. The rich, clear soup glistered in a rosy hue and along with the stirring let out a whiff of tempting aroma spreading outwards. Murong Fei placed the soup in front of Li Moying as she smiled. Senior brother, drink a little. I had specially gathered the dews on the snowy peak's roseleaf flower early this morning, combined with 10 over 4th grade medicinal herbs and the tenderloin of the amethyst-tailed ferret, boiling it for over 16 hours before it's finally done. This soup is best for replenishing profound energy and will aid you greatly in your cultivation. Please try some. Li Moying's vision fell upon the soup as his heart wavered slightly. He suddenly recalled the scene several days ago when he awoke on the flying ship and Huang Yueli had personally made him some food. The food that little lass made has not consisted of any exquisite ingredients but just an ordinary bowl of minced chicken porridge and a tray of steamed dumplings. However, that indescribable great taste was the best thing that he had ever had in his entire life. Whenever he thought of how Huang Yueli had treated him ever so gently when he was an invalid, Li Moying's lips curled upwards very slightly. Murong Fei's eyes turned wide as she saw that rare smile on his lips, as her heart went thump, thump, thumping non-stop. This man was really a trouble-leveled evildoer. Usually when he put on that icy look, naturally he looked cool and smart, but with this magnificent smile unmatched in his generation, it would put any woman to shame. And he actually smiled. Murong Fei had known Li Moying for years, but the number of times he had smiled could be counted using one hand. Yet now, he let out such a warm smile. You can also listen on. Even Murong Fei had never seen such a smile before. Just for that one moment, Murong Fei became dumbfounded, but after a while, she gradually regained her senses and in her heart welled up a surge of delightfulness. She had never expected that Li Moying would smile so warmly upon seeing the soup that she made. It looked like he was extremely satisfied with the soup. Luckily, all the efforts that she had put in had not been wasted, from flipping classics to search for medicinal cuisines which could help to restore profound energy to subsequently paying a high price for the ingredients, and finally to have wasted so much time and effort in boiling the soup. Murong Fei shyly lowered her chin as she replied coyly, "Senior brother, don't just look. Try some." Li Moying jolted as his thoughts remained on the kissing scenario when he and Huang Yueli were standing on the deck. The image was charming and gentle so much that he could not help but reveal a smile. However, at this moment, Murong Fei spoke out and broke into his yearning of his little fox, and that made Li Moying upset instantly. Turning back to look at the soup that Murong Fei made, although the color was pretty, but it looked extremely loathsome and that smell was too rich, which could simply suffocate him to death. In what way would this soup taste good? It cannot be compared to the porridge and side dish that his little fox made. As Li Moying was thinking about it, he stood up and replied, "I have no appetite. Please take it back along with you. I want to continue practicing my swordplay." Astonishment filled up Murong Fei's face as she could not understand why had Li Moying's expression suddenly changed. Why had that warm and gentle expression suddenly disappear within a blink of an eye and changed into that usual chilly demeanor? But Murong Fei didn't feel that Li Moying was upset. After all, Li Moying had just smiled. That shows that he was satisfied with the soup. Perhaps the reason for him not wanting to drink now was because of the immense pressure and all his thoughts were concentrated on cultivation, and not wasting any moment on food. Senior brother had always been like this. Not only did he have an exceedingly refined innate gift, he had also been cultivating hard as always, which was why he was able to become the #1 expert among the South Sky region's younger generation. When she thought of this, Murong Fei's heart started to hoist the feeling of admiration. She used the most gentlest tone that she ever had and tried asking again, "Senior brother, you really shouldn't neglect your own well-being like this. Even though our sect and the West Sky region's #1 sect have a wager and it's going to start in a month's time, as you are our most important chip in the entire sect and will definitely be fighting in the final round, but do you need to push yourself that tightly? Surely you will have some time to finish up this soup, right? Silence responded to her query as Li Moying had already lifted his amethyst light sword and walked towards the reflective cliff, preparing to practice his swordplay once more. Murong Fei chased after him hurriedly, holding that bowl of soup in her hand and bringing it to Li Moying once again. "Senior brother, please just try one mouth. You won't need much time." "Ah." When Murong Fei had rushed upwards, she suddenly came very close. Li Moying smelled that indistinct fragrance coming from her and his brows suddenly flashed a sliver of disgust. These large sex daughters simply loved to empty the entire bottle of perfume onto themselves. But no matter what, they cannot be compared to the natural sweet fragrance coming from his little fox. He only needed to go near Huang Yueli slightly and he would be drawn in by that fragrance, unable to control his urge to lean in closer and closer, bit by bit. But the fragrance on Murong Fei was simply overpowering and that made him feel unbearably vulgar, totally unable to accept it. Li Moying inclined his head towards the side in an attempt to evade, but coincidentally, Murong Fei was still holding on to the bowl of soup while rushing towards him. He lost his patience and stuck out his hand. "You can also listen on." A loud shattering sound resounded. The ceramic bowl was smashed onto the ground by him and instantly broke into several pieces, whereas the soup in the bowl had spilled all over the ground. "Say, senior brother," Murong Fei was filled with disbelief as she stared at Li Moying blankly. Wasn't he just smiling just a moment ago? Didn't that mean that he was satisfied with the soup she made? Why then, did he not only not drink, and he even pushed it away? Murong Fei blinked her eyes as the rim of her eyes started to turn red. For a popular lady who was held to the skies, she would usually be surrounded by many suitors who couldn't wait to please her. If she were to cast them just one more glance, those talented youths would be ecstatic till they won't be able to sleep. However, such a popular lady like her only had eyes for Li Moying. She was willing to remain meek and subservient, to dirty her hands in the kitchen for him, but yet he don't seem to register this into his mind. What Murong Fei was even more unable to accept was after Li Moying had ditched her aside, he coldly said, "I'm now in closed-door cultivation. Who gave you the authority to come in and disturb me? In future, do not come in here again. I will break that person's legs who dares to allow you in." Saying that, Li Moying didn't even bother to cast her a glance, and without a word, he started to meditate, and very quickly, he entered the state of état. As Murong Fei looked at his indifferent back, a sliver of embitterment shot into her heart. Something was wrong, very wrong. Earlier when she had come to look for Li Moying, from the distance, she saw Li Moying holding on to a letter, and as he was reading, he smiled brightly. At that moment, she had thought her eyes were failing her. Now that she recalled this scenario, Li Moying was probably really smiling, and he was smiling at that letter. And Li Moying's smile when she had lifted the lid of the soup bowl was probably due to remembering the contents of the letter and not because of the soup she made. It was her, showering affection on an uninterested party. But who wrote that letter? Why did such an unfeeling person like Li Moying smile so gently after reading the letter? Could it be that it was exactly like what Murong and I mentioned, that Li Moying had found himself a fiancé in that small South Yu kingdom? And he was extremely gentle and caring, pampering her in all ways? No, this was impossible. How would Li Moying be easily ordered around and to accept the marriage arrangement? Even if there was such a fiancé, just based on Li Moying's blunt character, how would he even smile just because of a letter from a woman? No matter how many times Murong Fei had pondered about this, it seemed impossible. But in her heart, she still could not let it go. She awkwardly left the Heaven Crate Valley where Li Moying was practicing his swordplay, and she was unable to maintain that sweet, gentle smile on her face any further. That peerlessly beautiful face was filled with ice-cold chilly intent. Murong Fei had immediately found her way to Murong Ni's room, who was quietly recuperating inside. Instead of showing care and concern for her sister's injuries, she directly got straight to the point and started shooting out questions. "Enrich, what you said previously, was it all the truth? Senior brother, he really has a fiancée?" Murong and I had rarely seen Murong Fei acting in a loss of self-control and impatient manner, and suddenly her heart shot a sliver of joy. To tell the truth, in front of her elder sister whose innate gift and beauty had long surpassed herself, Murong and I had never dared to display her interest in Li Moying. However, deep down in her heart, she could also feel jealousy. Both of them were the sect master's daughters, but she couldn't beat Murong Fei in any segment, so even the man she fancied had to be given up on a silver platter. You can also listen on. However, Murong and I knew that even if she were to fight with her sister, she would not be able to win her. Besides, this sister of hers was not as elegant as she looked. In the past, there were many female disciples who had a liking for Li Moying as well, but subsequently they had disappeared without a trace. Murong and I had long suspected that these matters had something to do with Murong Fei. But it's different now. No matter how much Murong Fei had wanted to keep Li Moying for herself, and no matter how she oppressed the other female disciples in the sect, it didn't matter anymore. Because Li Moying already had someone who he likes. Thinking of this, Murong and I naturally did not restrain whatever she knew as her words flowed like water, in an attempt to provoke her. "Of course it's true, why would I lie to you? I had witnessed it with my own eyes during this trip to the Dark Moon Forest with fifth brother. Senior brother had brought along a young lady and personally introduced her as his fiancée." "What? So it's true." Murong Fei clenched her teeth as the silk handkerchief in her hand was squashed into a ball. Murong and I continued, "Of course what I'm saying is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask fifth brother." He had seen it with his own eyes too, and second brother, who came later to the Dark Moon Forest, had also seen it. So, there's really such a person. Murong Fei was so jealous that she was unable to maintain her composure. Murong and I felt much better after she saw Murong Fei's reaction. Huang Yueli was not an easy character to deal with, and Murong and I she was definitely unable to outwit her. But surely her elder sister was different. As the highly valued eldest daughter of the sect master, with an 8th grade talent, she had plenty of schemes. Now that Murong Fei already knew about the existence of Huang Yueli, she wondered if the two of them were to encounter each other, who would have the upper hand. The best scenario would be neither side gained an upper hand. Perhaps she might have a chance to take the advantage. Murong and I continued to add oil to fire as she intentionally added, "Speaking of this, elder sister, yesterday when I was telling you this, didn't you tell me it's impossible and senior brother would definitely not get engaged to that country bumpkin? Why did you come here to ask again? I heard that you had intentionally boiled a bowl of medicinal cuisine for senior brother. How was it, after drinking the soup? Was it effective?" Murong and I purposely poked the point where it hurt the most, and this was extremely effective. When Murong Fei recalled the cold manner that Li Moying had treated her, her heart started to fill with anger. She had thought his nature was just indifferent, so she didn't think much of it. But earlier he had let out such a gentle smile, just from reading a letter, or when he was daydreaming by himself, he actually laughed out. What did it represent? Murong Fei had also seen couples who were passionately in love and was very sure that it was a display of deep affection. The fury in her heart could not be suppressed further as a flower vase in a corner was smashed to smithereens with a flick of her sleeve. The flower vase dropped heavily with a ping and broken into pieces as the fresh flowers fell all over on the ground. Not only was Murong and I not anxious upon seeing her fly into a rage, her heart flew with joy. For Murong Fei to show such anger, this was something rarely seen. But every single time she flew into a rage, someone was bound to get into big trouble. It looked like Huang Yueli's good days were coming to an end. Murong and I pretended to advise further. Elder sister, what's wrong? Why did you get so worked up? That flower vase was a birthday gift from Six Sisters several years ago. You can also listen on. Murong Fei immediately stopped her from continuing. Stop these rubbish. Since I broke your flower vase, I will naturally find something to make an exact one for you. Tell me clearly, that so-called fiancé that senior brother claimed, what's her background? What have you discovered in the Dark Moon Forest? Whenever Murong Fei mentioned the word fiancé, her intonation would suddenly become malevolent and every single syllable seemed to come out through the slits in between her teeth, filled with icy savage. And she was worried that Murong and I would not tell the entire truth, so she added, you better say it properly. If you do, not only will I give you that 6th-tier spiritual baby pet that you always wanted, I will also help you to seal the pact with it. Even if she hadn't added this promise, Murong and I would still tell her, but since now that she had offered a huge temptation, she became even more energetic. She was sniggering in her heart, thinking that the sandpiper and clam were together, and as she was the fisherman, she stood to gain all the advantages. It would be better if they could fight to their deaths and make Li Moying disgusted. Elder sister, this fiancée of senior brothers, is some marquis's daughter in the South Yu Kingdom. She seems very young and from my estimation, she probably has not reached the marriageable age yet. Moreover, her cultivation is not high, seems only to be at the Qi Profound Realm 9 level. It seems that it was senior brother's paternal father who set the marriage arrangement for him. Murong Fei sneered coldly, I see. In this case, she's really a country bumpkin. Kiki, for disciples from large sects like us, our marriages are not decided by our biological parents but only by the sect. Senior brother's marriage cannot be valid at all. What's more, a first-degree realm country bumpkin, how can she possibly be a good match for senior brother? This is simply a joke. Murong and I hurriedly added, that's right. That was what I had originally thought of as well, and I went to warn her that my elder sister, you, are senior brother's future wife. As for such a character like her, she's not even fit to warm up senior brother's bed. Murong Fei silently nodded, exactly. But elder sister, do you know what she said? She said that she's senior brother's officially engaged fiancé. Moreover, senior brother likes her, so you're just imagining that your love is reciprocated. What? This slut, both her status and cultivation are so lowly, and she dares to say this of me. Murong Fei was not someone who was easily instigated, but the person she minded most was Li Moying. It was unfortunate that just 1 hour ago, she had been rejected by Li Moying, and just as she was most embarrassed and hurt, she had to hear of such a news. And what Murong and I had said was essentially the truth. Even though the last sentence was to sow discord, but these words were exactly what Huang Yueli had used to insult Murong Fei. Even if Murong Fei was there in person, Huang Yueli would have said the same things in front of her. Just because it was all the truth, so it sounded like it had happened in that way. Murong and I carried on, picking out parts of her stories, on the happenings in the Dark Moon Forest. She naturally hid the contents on where she had rivaled for affection of Li Moying and mentioned only about how cocky this fiancé was, or how she would use Li Moying as a support to bully her and even influence Li Moying's shadow guards and Luo Jiyun to revolve around her. Besides that, she also emphasized that Li Moying's illness and him being attacked by the magical beasts, so seriously hurt to the point of almost losing his life, was all due to Huang Yueli. You can also listen on. As Murong Fei continued listening, her heart grew with resentment and bewilderedness. What happened to senior brother? How could he allow such a shameless slut to stay beside his side and create havoc? Could it be that she had a hold on senior brother, which allowed her to continue staying by his side? Murong and I quickly added more oil to the raging fire when she saw Murong Fei displaying such anger. Elder sister, from my observation, senior brother seemed to really be infatuated by this little lass. What? How can this be possible? Such an outstanding talent like senior brother has very high standards, so what would we see in this country bumpkin? You are still young, don't be fooled by that shameless slut. She told you that senior brother is infatuated by her and you actually believe her. Murong Fei didn't believe this because in the eyes of other daughters from the other sects and herself held Li Moying in a godly status. If any one of them was able to catch a glance from him, it would have been an extraordinary achievement. This kind of man would definitely stand on the pinnacle of the entire soaring heavens continent. If he didn't even choose Murong Fei, who had an outstanding talent and elegant demeanor among the other ladies, what more a country bumpkin? There was no way she would ever believe these words. Murong and I hastily added, "Sigh, elder sister, I didn't want to believe this initially too. But you didn't see the attitude that senior brother gave her, I can only say he listens to her every word." I couldn't stand seeing her unbridled manner and merely lashed out a few words and senior brother almost threw me out of the team. Moreover, fifth brother had already started greeting that lass as sister-in-law and senior brother didn't rebut him at all. "Elder sister, surely you understand what that means, right?" "What?" Junior brother Luo He actually greeted her that. How can it be not true? For a continuous 10 days, he went going, sister-in-law, non-stop, and not only did senior brother not correct her, he smiled brightly every single time. Oh yes, elder sister, normally you'd seldom see senior brother smile, right? But in front of that lass, not only did senior brother keep smiling, he also shamelessly followed her around everywhere. When Murong Fei heard such a descriptive narration, the look on her face changed entirely. Earlier, it was just a look of fury, but now it had congealed into seriousness. If it was said that before this, Li Moying was rumored to have several fiancés, she would only feel anger, thinking that the idol in her heart had been dirted by those shameless women. But now when Murong Fei heard these, she felt a sense of crisis. The term sister-in-law was not something that could be used casually. With Li Moying's character, if the other party had not obtained his consent and had linked any other women to his name, he would have flown into a rage long ago. Moreover, Luo Jiyun was a valued talent in the sect. He was an 8th grade talent, and although he was much easygoing as compared to Li Moying, but this kind of talent would also have his own pride. For him to use the term sister-in-law, it could only be incited by Li Moying. In this case, had Li Moying really taken a fancy to this country bumpkin who had popped out of nowhere? But how could this be possible? After so many years, could she have missed out that Li Moying's interest had actually been so different? To have a liking for a country bumpkin. No matter how Murong Fei thought about it, she was unable to sort things out. But she was very sure about one thing. That was, since Li Moying had truly fallen for that lass, then it would get in her way of being together with Li Moying, a huge obstacle. So she absolutely must get rid of this lass. You can also listen on. Senior brothers there's a matter which is very important to me. But the battle with West Sky region is about to start any time and I'm not allowed to leave the sect now. Murong Fei just started off slightly and Zhuo Fangping immediately agreed. Junior sister, don't worry. You don't need to leave the sect. If there's any matter, I'll handle it on your behalf and I guarantee that you'd be duly satisfied. Murong Fei's lips curled upward satisfactorily. As expected, men were just like dogs. Once they see a beauty, in order to steal their hearts, the beauty would only need to occasionally let out a smile and a couple of praises and they would do anything for her. Only Li Moying stood high up alone. Unlike the others, he did not win her favor, but yet he occupied her mind every single day. She was determined to win his heart. You can also listen on. Thinking about this, Murong Fei's fingers winched tightly on the silk handkerchief. She tried hard to compose her tone to sound natural. That's great, with senior brother's help, I can rest assured. But this matter requires you to make a trip to South Yu Kingdom and the distance is rather far. Zhuo Fangping didn't hesitate and immediately responded, no matter. Junior sister, just tell me what's on your mind. Murong Fei replied, help me make a trip to South Yu Kingdom and find a young lady called Yu Li. She should be a young miss of a rich family in the South Yu Kingdom, around 14 years of age, and her cultivation is just a so-so, at first-degree realm. She is also the fiancée of the second prince of South Yu Kingdom. Zhuo Fangping nodded his head without a doubt. Very few people knew the fact that Li Moying was from the South Yu Kingdom, and most people thought he was an orphan that the sect master had picked up. Only a few prominent characters and people closer to him, such as Luo Jian, knew his background. So Zhuo Fangping didn't know that fact at all. He only heard Murong Fei continuing, once you find this little lass, find a chance to kill her. Zhuo Fangping was stumped. This. Junior sister, why? Murong Fei's expression was calm as she replied coldly, senior brother Zhuo, naturally I would have my own reasons, so you're not willing to help me? If you're not willing, I can find other senior brothers to help instead. Zhuo Fangping was originally hesitant, but when he heard these words, he immediately flustered. Don't, junior sister. Don't find anyone else. This matter is very simple, isn't she just a first-degree realm lass? Senior brother, I will settle this matter quickly and cleanly. There were many male disciples who wanted to win Murong Fei's favor. After all, who didn't hope to become the son-in-law of the sect master? Putting aside her status, just based on Murong Fei's beauty and innate talent, it was enough to make those talents pour their hearts out for her. Zhuo Fangping was very sure that if he didn't take up this task, there would be someone else who would be willing to help Murong Fei. By then, they would be able to show their faces in front of Murong Fei and win her favor. Zhuo Fangping didn't want to give up such a good opportunity to others. What's more, wasn't it just killing a person / as a practitioner, whose hand were not stained? The reason for killing wasn't that important at all, and he was just asking because he was curious about Murong Fei. Even if there was no answer, it wasn't important at all. Murong Fei gave out a slight smile and replied, since that's the case, I'll give me advance thanks to senior brother first. Zhuo Fangping stared at the faint smile as he blankly nodded his head. South Yu Kingdom. Valiant Martial Manor. Huang Yueli had been peacefully cultivating for the past few days, and basically she had already refined a large portion of the fire-attributed energy within her body, and the remaining required quite a bit of time before she could completely refine all the energy. So besides cultivating daily, she would also dabble in other work, such as refining profound weapons, or taking some time out to give pointers regarding cultivation to the people in her manor. Huang Yueli realized that ever since Moe had arrived, all the people in the manor's cultivation had suddenly made tremendous improvements. For this, Huang Yueli specially observed quite a bit. The result was she discovered that under Moe's hand, he used the Spartan training method. So whoever who were not able to complete the training mission had to face severe punishment. In this way, no one dared to laze around and were all training diligently, without a single bit of slack. You can also listen on. Not only that, Moe had also picked amongst them few servants with high innate talent and perseverance to become the leader of the guards. Huang Yu was extremely satisfied with this. No wonder he was the right-hand man of Li Moying. No matter what he did, it was enough to make anyone relieved, as his arrangement was very well covered. In actual fact, Huang Yueli had thought of teaching those servants in the manor herself, but unfortunately, she had been busy cultivating and refining armaments, so she simply had no time. Moe had done her a huge favor this time. During this day, Huang Yueli had just completed her cultivation and barely stepped out of her room when she saw Kai Wei running into her courtyard in a flurry. Third miss, something bad has happened. What's the matter? Kai Wei huffed and puffed. At the palace, there are many people from the palace, a lot of golden-scaled guards, saying that they are going to capture you and Sir Moe into the palace. They said Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor pointed you two out, saying the robbery of the royal treasury had something to do with the both of you, and they want to punish you for the crime. When Huang Yueli heard this, not only did she not appear flustered, she smiled and said, looks like Li Majuan and the rest are severely injured this time, so they could only get down their beds and fabricate accusations. Isn't that simply miserable? She had expected this to happen sooner or later. The day she had made the royal treasury collapse, it was because of the self-destruction mechanism which buried the entire treasury beneath the ground. It was equivalent to losing the entire South Yu Kingdom's capital. For such a huge commotion to happen, how would the emperor not raise the alarm? Although it was peaceful in the valiant martial manor during this entire time, the atmosphere outside had already been turned topsy-turvy. Golden-scaled guards were capturing people all over the kingdom in order to find the mastermind who had wrecked the royal treasury. But this was what she wanted. Only then could her next step of her plan materialize. Huang Yueli's smile grew deeper. Kai Wei stamped her feet as she screeched, "Third miss, how could you still smile at this time? What should we do now?" Huang Yueli calmly replied, "Do nothing at all. Just make sure the main gate is shut tight closely and all off you continue to cultivate in the manor. I shall make a trip with Moe to the palace." "Ha! But..." "Third miss, the palace is filled with golden-scaled guards and the Imperial Tutor is also present. If you and Sir Moe were to enter, if Crown Prince were to resort to underhanded methods to harm you, what should you do?" "Harm me? He needs to have that potential to do so first." Huang Yueli didn't even think anything of it. The palace's Imperial Tutor and Emperor's uncle's cultivation were only at the 4th degree realm. Not to mention that Imperial Tutor had been injured by Moe several days ago. Judging from that, his injuries should not have recovered fully yet. Even if they were to combine their efforts together, they were still unable to defeat Moe. If they were to really enter the palace, the one who fall into bad luck would definitely not be Huang Yueli. Under the worrying eyes of Kai Wei, Huang Yueli along with Moe left the manor leisurely. Outside the manor entrance stood a team of golden-scaled guards waiting. Different from the usual bossy and domineering attitude, these golden-scaled guards had heard what happened in the valiant martial manor on that day and no one dared to act rashly on Huang Yueli's turf. All of them stood upright, not daring to enter directly. When they saw Huang Yueli coming out, they even bowed politely. The lead commander got off his steed and went forward to politely ask, "Third Miss Bai, the Emperor had a verbal edict to invite you and Master Moe into the palace immediately. I will like to trouble you to follow me to enter the palace." Huang Yueli raised her brow as she replied, "Then lead the way. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli had not expected the golden-scaled guards to be so courteous along the way, so she couldn't get angry with them. She wasn't an unreasonable person, so when others treated her with respect, she naturally won't make things difficult for them. Once they've entered the palace, she was brought quickly to the main hall. From afar, she had already heard the Empress's wailing and howling. "Your Majesty, oh your Majesty, please seek justice for Majuan. Majuan. He's simply too pitiful." The Empress cried pitifully. "My child, the Crown Prince had his meridians severed by Li Moying that brat. He had been bedridden for such a long time and it was only after Shuer finally reached home before he had recovered, but we had never expected that he would be harmed by Bai Ruoli, that source of calamity." Following that was the Emperor's voice. "Enough. We still don't know what is the truth yet. What's more, since Majuan had just recovered, why didn't he stay at home to recuperate? Instead, why did he create trouble for Bairuoli? Just what was he trying to do? Your Majesty, Bairuoli definitely have something to do with Schwer incident too. In the midst of the sobbing and shouting, Huang Yueli had already strode into the main hall. Upon hearing the Empress's words, she smiled slightly and cut into her words. Your Majesty, why am I not able to understand what you're saying? What happened to the 7th princess? Why did you say? It has something to do with me. Empress's crying came to an end spontaneously, and as her eyes were locked dead on Huang Yueli as she spun around. Gnashing her teeth, she hissed, Bairuoli, you still dare to come here? Huang Yueli innocently blinked her big eyes as she replied, Your Majesty, His Majesty summoned for me, how can I not come? And why don't I dare to come? Earlier when I was at the door, I could hear Your Majesty claiming that I had harmed the 7th princess. Where did that come from? You're still pretending. Huang Yueli's calm and composed attitude thoroughly infuriated the Empress. Empress had never thought that this lass had the nerve to deal such a heavy blow to the country's crown prince and the princess, and after everything had been brought to light and she had been captured to be condemned, she was showing an unafraid look. And she still had the cheek to smile. Empress was raging with fury as she swore in her heart that she would thoroughly torture this lass in order to seek revenge for her 2 children. Empress retorted, You dare to say Schwer's matter had nothing to do with you. I have already checked things out clearly. That day, Schwer went to your valiant martial manor hoping to reminisce about the past, but in the end, the minute she came back, she turned into that manor. My Schwer had treated you as her best friend and looked for you the minute she returned, but how about you? How did you treat her? Huang Yueli's look turned chilly. This Empress was indeed as shameless as always, distorting the truth deliberately. Li Schwer had looked for her because she treated her like her best friend. There's actually such a close female friend who deliberately interrupt other people's advancement? Her big eyes grew wide with exaggeration and a confused expression filled her face. What did she end up as? I really don't know anything. That's right, that day, 7th princess had indeed visited my manor, but as I was in closed-door cultivation, I didn't have any time to receive her arrival. 7th princess probably treated me as her family, so she didn't stand on any ceremony. Not only did she stay at my manor for an entire day, she also taught my servants a lesson, and injured my personal maid. Besides that, she also felt that my room needs to be renovated and helped me demolish it. Such a considerate way of thinking of my well-being. As her words came out of her mouth, Empress Dowager's voice came echoing from the side. You can also listen on. What's happening? What Lear meant was, not only was Schwer beating up people in the valiant martial manner, she was also throwing things around. Outrageous, as a princess, what happened to her upbringing? Huang Yueli spun around and noticed that sitting right in the main hall were the Empress, the Emperor and Empress Dowager, who were pulled along to preside over justice, as well as the legendary royal uncle, whose cultivation was in the 4th-degree realm. Besides that, Imperial Tutor was seated right in front of the Emperor. Although he looked normal, but under Huang Yueli's vicious glare, she could tell that his complexion was still swollen. Obviously, the internal injuries within his body had yet to fully recover. And right in front of the Imperial Tutor was a stretcher where Crown Prince Li Majuan laid. He was unable to sit up, but he used his pair of bloodshot eyes to stare viciously at Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli heard the Empress Dowager speaking out for her, so she turned around and gave her a curtsy. This old lady Empress Dowager, although she was soft-hearted, but in totality, she was considered as a good person. However, when the Empress heard what she said, her rage rose rapidly. Schwer is the princess of the Empress, and since the servants in your manor did not treat her well, she helped you by lecturing them. What was wrong with that? Moreover, it is your honor to have the princess visiting your manor. You only care about your own cultivation and left her aside. In your eyes, do you even have any respect for the royal family's prestige? The corners of Huang Yueli's lips moved coldly as she secretly laughed in her heart. This empress was already a grown woman, but she's still so naive to think that just based on the royal family's prestige, it was enough to make one bow and bend their knees. Wasn't she thinking way too much? In soaring heaven's continent, the only way to earn other people's respect was to use their own power. Huang Yueli blinked as she replied, "Your Majesty, what you said is correct. Although seventh princess attacked the array that I had set up for my closed-door cultivation, almost causing my advancement to fail, but I didn't haggle with her on this. After my advancement was successful, I had even sent her away courteously. At least, when she left the valiant martial manor, she was still in one piece. But after she had left, I wouldn't know what happened during my absence." The empress retaliated, "In one piece? What if in one piece? What on earth did you do to Schwer, that she would appear in that manner at the palace gates?" "That manner? What manner?" Huang Yueli asked innocently. "With that bunch of guards, not wearing," Empress was so infuriated that the words blurted out from her mouth. "Shut your mouth. Empress, what nonsense are you sprouting?" Emperor gave a hard cough to stop her from talking. Empress was left dumbfounded and unable to reply. At last she responded. When Schwer returned from the valiant martial manor, she was found to have both her arms broken and her face was burnt. As for her bodyguards, they had been beaten up and several of them had sustained severe injuries. "You dare to say that this has nothing to do with you?" Huang Yueli maintained her lost look. "This? I really don't know. At that time, I was behind closed door cultivating for my advancement and seventh princess insisted on barging into the room. The result was that she hit against the profound energy that I had lost control over during my advancement. At that moment, she had indeed been pushed far away by the profound energy that was let loose and she felt quite heavily too. But how can you blame this on me? Besides, after my advancement, seventh princess immediately went back and I didn't even know she had broken her arms from the fall." When Empress Dowager heard these words, her expression turned darker. She had not known about the scandal between seventh princess and the golden-scaled guards and had thought Li Schwer was beaten up in the valiant martial manner and mobilized her troops for a punitive expedition. Upon hearing the entire matter, she took Huang Yueli's side immediately. If what Lier said was true, then it would be Schwer's fault. To interrupt one when one was in the middle of advancement might lead to death. Schwer didn't manage to harm anyone, but her luck was bad enough to have met with the impact of the profound energy and cause her own injury. Instead of feeling remorse, you still have the guts to come and complain to me. When the Empress heard what the Empress Dowager said, she secretly gritted her teeth. The words that Empress Dowager had said was obviously blaming her for her lack of discipline. How could Empress Dowager be so biased? It was this wretch who had continuously humiliated her crown prince and seventh princess, and also beaten them to such a devastating manner. It was all that wretch's fault. Suddenly her eyes glimmered as she subconsciously found a flaw to Huang Yueli's answer. "Your Highness, don't be cheated by Ruoli. How can you believe when she said she was in advancement? Who does know that at the Peach Blossom Banquet 1 month ago, Ruoli had just advanced to the Chi Profound Realm 9 stage? How much time had passed since then? And she's about to advance. Yet she still dared to claim that she had advanced successfully. Isn't that a blatant lie?" Empress stared at Huang Yueli, hoping to see her shocked and helpless expression after she had been exposed. Unfortunately, Huang Yueli still maintained a composed expression except for a glint of ridicule flashing past her eyes. "Your Majesty, do you think I'm lying? Isn't it obvious? You're just 14 years old and had already advanced to the second-degree realm. Even if you're a 6th-grade talent, your cultivation speed can't be that heaven-defying. Do you really think everyone lacked the power of judgment? You actually dare to just say out without considering the consequences. A frog in the well, this is also considered as heaven-defying. Huang Yueli snickered icily. In the huge sects, there were plenty of 14-year-old in the second-degree realm. What's more, they don't even require 6th-grade talent. From a person in a small country at the border, it was no wonder that their knowledge was so short-sighted. And no wonder there were few outstanding experts within the country. Empress had believed that she was lying and kept pressing on. Stop your blatant lies. Since you're so awesome and you claim that you're not lying, then simple enough. Release your profound energy and let everyone take a look. If you don't dare to, woo. Before Empress could finish her words, she felt a powerful profound energy rushing towards her. Her chest became tight and her expression turned pale white immediately, unable to say a single word. She used her hand and pressed against her chest, unbelieving looking straight in front of her. Huang Yueli had slightly unleashed the profound energy within her, but as she didn't want to expose her true power, she had only unleashed a power equivalent to the second-degree realm first-stage practitioner's profound energy. You can also listen on. Empress's cultivation was not high, only at second-degree realm first level. Under the attack of Huang Yueli's profound energy, she actually felt ill at ease as the qi and blood in her chest surged and she almost threw up blood. Unbelievably, she glanced at Huang Yueli. You really? The other people present, too, displayed a shocked expression. Emperor asked astonishing, this is really, second-degree realm practitioner's qi. How is this possible? Lear, you've really broken through to the second-degree realm. Huang Yueli nodded, that's right. The day when 7th Princess came over, I had just successfully broken through. Initially I was thinking that since your majesties are both my seniors, I should enter the palace to inform you of this happy occasion. But because 7th Princess had almost interrupted my advancement, the profound energy within was unstable, so during this entire duration, I had been cultivating in secrecy. Emperor and Empress Dowager crossed eyes and gave out a joyous expression. 14 years old and you've already broke through to the second-degree realm. Even among 6th-grade talents practitioners, this is very hard to find. Lear is indeed by Lu Feng's daughter, your talent is extraordinary. Empress Dowager added, Lear is really something. Your future is laid with boundless prospects and you'd definitely chase up to your father. Hearing the Emperor and Empress Dowager's praises, Empress's face had turned steely green. Li Shuer had been stripped of the princess title and had been impounded in the isolated palace. Even the Empress was not given a chance to see her. So what they knew was after Li Shuer had went to find trouble with Huang Yueli, she had ended up in that state. But they did not know the actual events that had happened. She had never thought that Huang Yueli had coincidentally just broke through to the second-degree realm on that day. The few of them felt something bad was going to happen. Huang Yueli's innate talent had originally surpassed Li Majuan and she had even taken a step forwards and broke through to the second-degree realm. In this way, she had already left the crown prince behind. As for Li Shuer and the others, they were far more inferior. As her power grew larger, it would become more difficult to deal with her. Originally their intent was to use this opportunity to force Huang Yueli into a dead end. Even if they were not able to give her a death sentence, at least they should be able to lock her in the prison and secretly deal with her. But who would have expected that there was such a plot twist? Such a talented young lady was a huge asset to the entire South Yu Kingdom. She was also the future hope for invigorating the country, so Emperor would definitely not bear to sentence her heavily. As expected, after Emperor and Empress Dowager had showered her with praises, the look they gave towards Huang Yueli had turned even more amiable. Lear, I have now understood the situation that you had explained. Shuer was indeed too much. The consequences of interrupting one's advancement is very serious. It is normal that you are upset with her, and as for her getting injured from the reserve impact of your profound energy, she can only blame herself for her own rashness. Empress could tell that the Emperor had no intention of pursuing the matter and hurriedly added, Your Majesty, we have yet to investigate the true facts of this matter yet. Even if Schwer was at fault in the first place, I am not blaming Byruoli for hurting her. But she cannot do such things to Schwer. Isn't that throwing our royal family's face onto the ground to stomp? Lear, don't blame me for being calculative, but this matter, you absolutely must give me an explanation. Emperor immediately became hesitant. Huang Yueli maintained her innocent look. Your Majesties, you had mentioned this several times that I had harmed Li Schwer. I really don't know what's going on. Can't you make it any clearer? You can also listen on. With this, Empress was once again held back. That's right, why did she forget again? If that shameless thing that happened to Li Schwer were to spread out, the consequences would be dire. In future, who would dare to marry Li Schwer? Empress had been hoping that Li Schwer would be able to join the big family in Sky Cloud City, find a good husband and help the crown prince add some points to his status. However, she was not willing to let Huang Yueli off so easily. Just as she was hesitating, Huang Yueli spoke out. Your Majesty, is there something that you cannot speak of? Or it is something difficult to say out? Otherwise shall we do it this way? Since you insist that I had harmed 7th Princess, why not ask her out and have a confrontation directly? Otherwise, get her bodyguards. I have a straight foot and is not afraid of a crooked shoe. The Empress hesitated again. Confrontation. How could she confront? Ever since Li Schwer got into that matter, she had always been locked up in the isolation palace and her emotions were obviously not stable. If they were to get her to the main hall, it was possible that the minute she opened her mouth, she would narrate everything out right away. In this way, how was she going to maintain her reputation? As for those bodyguards, in order to hide the secret that Li Schwer had lost his chastity, the Emperor and Empress had already ordered those men to death on that fateful day. Now where were they going to look for witness? Empress looked at Huang Yueli's expression that resembled a smile and yet not a smile and knew that she must be ridiculing her from the depths of her heart, and that angered her even further. After half a day, she could only force this sentence out, Schwer. Ever since the day that Schwer returned injured, she had been recuperating quietly. How can we let her come out and be agitated by you? As for those bodyguards, all of them have their duties, so how could we just ask them out from their official work, just like that? Huang Yueli couldn't help but let out a sniggering sound. Your Majesty, isn't what you said just too funny? 7th Princess reported against me but don't dare to come out to confront me. As for those bodyguards, they also don't dare to come out and face me. Just based on this, you still dare to claim that you're not slandering me. Otherwise, could it be that Li Schwer had done something shameless and don't dare to show her face? What's something shameless? You. Don't you dare to sprout words blindly. Empress's face turned pale white as she denied vehemently. Huang Yueli retorted, since it's nothing shameless, then why are you hemming and hawing? Since Empress Dowager is also here, why not just invite 7th Princess here and let Empress Dowager to preside over justice for us? Empress Dowager frowned as she had long tired of their endless bickering. At this moment, she immediately continued, what Lear said is correct. Empress, since you maintain what you had said, why not just ask the person involved to come out and tell the truth? I have heard that Schwer's skin was burnt. As a practitioner, she should have recovered after so many days of rest, so go and ask her to come to the main hall. Saying that, she turned her head and commanded, men, go and invite 7th. No. Empress hastily stood up and stopped the eunuch who was preparing to send the order. Empress Dowager felt something was amiss and the expression on her face sunk. Empress, what's the meaning of this? Could it be that it was exactly as Lear had said, you're just slandering her? That's not true, Your Highness. Empress did not know how to respond as she had scolded Huang Yueli 100,000 times in her heart. This wretched lass, she was entirely filled with evil intentions. She knew that was not able to openly talk about Li Shuer's matter in public and had purposely dragged the Empress Dowager to partake in this. This time, how was she going to get out of this situation? You can also listen on. The Empress felt that she was treated unjustly. This matter was obviously caused by Huang Yueli. Li Shuer had said it herself that it was Huang Yueli who had fed her with the abstinence pill, thus causing her to create such a scandal. However, there was nothing the Empress could do about it, as Li Shuer could not come out to testify against her. Not only was she not able to convict Huang Yueli of the crime, now it seemed that in the Empress Dowager's eyes, she had intentionally set Huang Yueli up in order to frame her. But whatever she had said was the entire truth. Just as Empress was incomparably oppressed, Emperor's voice rang across the hall. Forget it, Empress. This matter has now come to an end. After he said that to the Empress, he turned towards the Empress Dowager. Queen Mother, Empress only had one daughter Shuer, and now that she's injured, it is only natural that Empress is anxious about her. And it is true that Shuer had indeed got injured at the valiant martial manner, so it's not considered as slander. However, as Lear did not do it on purpose, this matter, let's just let it pass. Lear, what do you think? Emperor had been listening and thinking for quite some time. In actual fact, he did have his suspicions on Huang Yueli as well. Li Shuer was trapped so badly, and as she had just stepped out of the valiant martial manner, Huang Yueli was naturally the main suspect. The only thing Emperor could not figure out was even if Huang Yueli had just advanced, she was only at the second-degree realm first stage. Li Shuer's cultivation was much higher than hers, not to mention that she had brought along so many outstanding golden-scaled guards along. Besides that, Huang Yueli had no reason to trick Li Shuer. In this case, there was a possibility that Lear was being framed, perhaps. Li Shuer had offended someone in Sky Cloud City, and that party had sent someone here to exact revenge. Under the circumstances that there wasn't sufficient evidence to pin the crime onto Huang Yueli, if Li Moying were to return in future, he would definitely fly into a rage. Even without Li Moying, just based on Huang Yueli's innate gift alone, Emperor had not wanted to offend her too much. More importantly, Li Shuer and the men had paraded themselves ostentatiously about in town, so this matter absolutely cannot be publicized. If word really got out, then the person who would lose out is Li Shuer, and the ones to make a spectacle of themselves would be the entire royal family. Weighing the pros and cons, Emperor chose to keep the peace. Empress unbelievably raised her head. Your Majesty, how can we do that? Shuer had been taken such a big disadvantage, we simply cannot let this little slut. Shut your gap. I have already said let the matter rest. This was originally Shuer's fault. Must you bring up what she did until everyone finds out about it before you will let matters rest? Empress looked like she was struck by lightning and lowered her head disappointedly. Although the Emperor didn't make it clear, seemingly hinting that it was Shuer's fault for seeking revenge at the valiant martial manner. But in the ears of the Empress, the Emperor was clearly warning her that Shuer's loss of chastity absolutely cannot be revealed. Empress knew that the Emperor had to retain the reputation of the royal family and had chosen to forsake Li Shuer. Although she was both furious and anxious, but she could only accept this outcome. Huang Yueli saw the Empress's dejected look and smiling added, since that's the case, I thank your Majesty for pronouncing my innocence. Lear is utmost grateful. But what? Emperor inquired. Huang Yueli smiled as she claimed, while 7th Princess was visiting my manor, she had practically wrecked the walls and backyard. So my rooms over that area cannot be used for residence anymore. I'm just a pauper, where would I find money to fix my house? Initially, I had intended to enter the palace to look for the seventh princess for compensation. Now, using this opportunity, I would like to pay her a visit, and on the way, discuss with her about this. You can also listen on. Discuss. What about? Empress questioned in a guarded manner. Every single time Huang Yueli opened her mouth, the Empress's heart would jump. This wretched lass was full of wretched ideas, so every single time she spoke, it would be something bad, as though she was born to obstruct her. Undeniably, the Empress had learnt her lesson well and became wiser. As expected, Huang Yueli replied, of course it would be about, to discuss on compensation. Your Majesty, as you can see, my house had collapsed and naturally it must be rebuilt. As for the servants in my manor, they were beaten up so badly that some are maimed or seriously injured. I must naturally pay for their compensation payment. Besides, I was scared stiff by seventh princess who almost caused my advancement to fail. Because of that, I am still suffering from internal injury, so I would need to spend money to pay for my treatment, right? When the Empress heard these, she almost fainted on the spot. She had already been disadvantaged and Li Shuer had already become this manner, and now all she could do was to suffer in silence and give way to Huang Yueli. She had never expected that this lass would not be satisfied with small gains. Now, she still expected to be compensated. Empress was angered to the max as she coldly sneered, you want compensation? Fat hope. Impossible. Huang Yueli smiled, Your Majesty, I'm not asking you for compensation, your words cannot be counted. I'll directly negotiate with seventh princess. Quickly bring me to her chamber to look for her. Empress's heart thumped hard, and almost instantaneously she understood her motive for coming. This lass's motive was not for any compensation but, to reveal the fact that Li Shuer had lost her chastity. If she were to bring her to look for Li Shuer, Empress Dowager and the rest would naturally follow suit. However, Li Shuer was now in the isolation palace, so how was she going to explain this to the Empress Dowager? She hurriedly shook her head, no way, we can't go. Shueri had suffered serious injuries and needs to recuperate quietly, you're not allowed to go and disturb her. Huang Yueli's expression grew chiller as she questioned, Your Majesty, what do you mean? Firstly, you malign me for harming seventh princess and yet you don't allow me to confront her. Now seventh princess had wrecked my valiant martial manner and you refuse to let me clear things up with her nor compensate me. What is this? Am I destined to let other people bully you? The Empress was interrogated by her countless queries, causing her chest to rage with pain. Huang Yueli was indeed a demon, who was capable of bullying her. She had been the one who was bullying others and using her gift of the gap, others had no chance to rebut nor redress their injustice. For that one moment, the Empress really wanted to speak out the entire truth, slapping Huang Yueli viciously on the face. But after she had calmed down, she chose to give in. How could she bear to use her daughter's reputation as a joke? So this injustice, even if she couldn't take it, she still must. Alright, consider it as Shuer's wrongdoing. Let me, her mother, help her compensate you. How much do you want? Huang Yueli pursed her lips and thought for a moment before she replied, since seventh princess was also injured and seemed quite pitiful, then I'll ask for lesser. 300,000 taels of gold then. How much did you say? The Empress could not believe her ears. Huang Yueli repeated once again, 300,000 taels of gold. That's daylight robbery. Is your manor made of gold? Why do you need that much money? She could not suppress her anger any further and blew up. Even a brand new mansion located in the country's best position merely costed 10,000 taels of gold, and to construct a new palace within the royal palace was merely 20,000 taels of gold. Huang Yueli actually asked for 300,000 taels. You can also listen on. Even the emperor's face displayed some signs of unhappiness. Lear, you've never run a household before, so you won't know how much the construction of a home costs. Later I'll get someone from the Ministry of Revenue to drop by the Valiant Marshal Manor to ascertain the damages in your manor and compensate you accordingly. Emperor suggested this compromised proposal. Empress immediately put her heart at ease. Since Emperor had already spoken, this wretched lass should know when to stop. However, Huang Yueli still shook her head. How can we do that? If the Ministry of Revenue were to come and check and just compensate to 3,000 or 5,000 taels, then what should I do? 3,000 or 5,000 taels isn't enough. Who do you think you are? How dare you demand an exorbitant price in the Emperor's presence? Huang Yueli patted her chest, displaying a frightened expression, as though she was shocked by the Empress's aggressive attitude. Your Majesty, the price I had stated is fair and reasonable. Did you know about this? When 7th Princess came to the manor, I was in closed-door cultivation in the study room, and the courtyard had been set up with a 4th-tier spirit-gathering array. This array was not only set up using 4th-tier materials, it must be driven by 4th-grade crystals before it can work. However, 7th Princess found a team of golden scaled guards and used all their might to attack the array. Not only did they deplete all the crystal's energy, because of that, it had also broke the array completely, and all those materials cannot be reused. If I were to bring those 4th-tier materials to the auction house, it would at least be auctioned for 300,000 taels of gold. Not forgetting now that the array is broken, where am I going to find such a high-level array master to help me set up another array? I'm just asking for compensation for the array's materials, so I'm already giving a major discount, all right. How did it turn out to be like this? Empress was dumbfounded as beads of perspiration started to form on her forehead. If what Huang Yueli said was true, then Li Shuer would have gotten herself into hot soup this time. 300,000 taels of gold. If it had been 2 months ago, Empress would have been able to come out with it. But as Crown Prince was swindled at 1,000 Treasure Pavilion previously, she had taken out all her fortune to subsidize him, and she had not much left. This time, where was she going to find money to compensate? Just as Empress was loaded with anxiety, not knowing how to respond, suddenly a sound of heavy coughing echoed from behind. Immediately following that, someone spoke out, "Third Miss Bai, you're really smart at swindling money. Are you really in that much need? From what I see, it doesn't seem to be that case. Didn't you, just a few days ago, just stole a huge amount of treasures from the royal treasury?" The person who spoke was the imperial tutor. His voice sounded slightly hoarse because when the self-destruction mechanism in the royal treasury was activated, it quickly triggered the flame mechanism. The smog produced was too much, and as he had been the first to charge through, the ash had fumigated his throat, causing hoarseness. Until today, he had not recovered. When Huang Yueli heard his voice, the sides of her lips curled into an evident smile as she slowly turned around. She knew that Imperial Tutor was definitely not going to sit there just to watch a show. She had set him up in the royal treasury, so he would definitely take revenge. Moreover, since the royal treasury had met with a mishap, it was natural that the mastermind must be dug out. If Imperial Tutor didn't find trouble for her, that would become heaven's strangest occurrence. In actual fact, Imperial Tutor had indeed been thinking in this way. He had his own reason for not creating trouble with Huang Yueli at the first timing. The reason was because when he and Crown Prince had entered the royal treasury, they had not obtained the Emperor's permission. Truth be told, several years ago, Crown Prince and Imperial Tutor had already conspired with the other 4th-degree realm expert, who was in charge of protecting the royal treasury. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.